Alrighty, guys. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. I was going to go live a little bit later today, but it looks like I have plans that I forgot about. And I did reschedule the members only merch giveaway that we had set up for earlier. So that will be rescheduled for the 16th. Same time. Thank you, Mesra. What's up, Jebo? Audra? Tambi. Okay, so a lot of movement in the Delphi case. Good to see you, Anthony France. Piper's Dream, and we'll get started here in just a few. Thank you, Anthony. I'm doing much better. Hey, Ziggy. Okay, so what it looks like is we have the status hearing coming up, and it sounds like Holman and the prosecution, it seems like they're panicked. They're panicked about being forced to provide information that has been deemed confidential. What that is, I'm just not sure. But it sounds like something that the defense either they weren't allowed to talk about or they were not privy to, because the prosecution does not plan to bring this up in court or to use it against Richard Allen, so therefore they wouldn't have to. The defense is using that against the prosecution. They're saying, well, even they think that there's a third-party suspect. So why are you not allowing us to bring forth our third-party suspects when the prosecution themselves are telling you they believe that others are involved and they have their own third-party suspects? Now, this is the first time they're really driving this home. We always thought it was just a hypothetical, one of the situations where, hey, we don't know everything, so we can't say with a certainty that there's not others involved. And they do that in every case until they have all the answers. This is different, and I said that from the beginning that this was different. You don't seal a probable cause affidavit for those purposes, right? For anything standard. These were special circumstances. And now the prosecution seems to be panicking about it because they know, just like I know, that they're going to be forced to lay that all out on the table during the status hearing. All cards are coming out. And this is their plea begging. Please, Judge Gull, please don't force us to release this information. It is detrimental to an ongoing case. So my only question is, who are these other suspects? Who are these other people that they believe are involved? Do they have witnesses that we know nothing about, that have nothing to do with Richard Allen? Or are they simply referring to Keegan Klein and the whole Anthony Schott stuff and the Wabash River search and the Grissom Air Force Base meeting and all of that stuff? So I really wanted to get your opinions on that. I think there is a good chance that it will be Keegan Klein. They have the documentation listing him as a confidential informant. And they also stated in a document that was filed that you cannot talk about Keegan Klein. You can't talk about Ronald Logan. They had a whole list of things that you cannot talk about. And if they don't plan to bring it up in court against Richard Allen, it's not part of the discovery. It's a whole separate part of the investigation. And if they don't plan to bring it forward, they don't need to discuss it. Good to see you, James. Molly, welcome in. Welcome in. Not quite sure what's going on. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Honorary one. Welcome in. Lone Pony, welcome in. James says someone is definitely under investigation. That's what that's what it looks like. You had Mullin and Holman write letters to Gull saying, hey, we need to keep this information private. Because the second you let this out, there's going to be a group of people who are going to be hounded. And they will be hounded. And I don't know if this is a witness that they've kept secret that has nothing to do with Richard Allen. I'm not quite sure. I'm hoping you might know. What's up, Audra? Pipers, hello. I think Richard Allen would have squealed by now if more involved. Just my opinion. Why do you think that? I mean, I feel like we're dealing with an extremely stubborn person. In Richard Allen. Hey, Molly, that is a good point from the defense, but they don't have any third parties where they can show evidence they had motive, means, opportunity, etc. But I still think maybe others involved. That's a good point. And in the documents put out today, it sounds like they have a witness. They're trying to protect a witness. If they can't protect their witnesses, and from the beginning they promised that they could. They said, if you come forward, we can protect you. And that's really just never the case. You know, people have to take the risk and be brave and do the right thing, regardless of those risks. But I understand, you know, it's their lives are at stake too. And if they're dealing with a killer, I mean, I get it. What's up, Doris? Jibbo, I think they are saying other suspects to keep the lines open and protect witnesses. Witnesses of what? If there's a witness that has information on Richard Allen, they can't keep that private. That's part of the discovery. So that's not what they're talking about. If there's any evidence that they have that pertains to Richard Allen and the case they plan to bring forth during the trial, the defense absolutely has to know about it. And they're not going to keep quiet. So that's not the case. Good to see you, CJK. Shane, welcome in. James says, absolutely, and he's being held in the best prison on the planet. CJK says, I've never thought anyone else was involved in the murders, just in my opinion. Well, Holman and Mullin will disagree with you. They just wrote 2 letters to Gull stating that they believe that there are other actors and that they need to keep that part private. Now, we have a status hearing coming up where everything has to be laid out on the table. Richard Allen has to have a clear understanding of his consequences and his options. He needs to be able to make an educated decision on his future. Someone somewhere made a good point that if he says he has info and can snitch, then he's putting himself at the crime. There's no good deal. Why not take a chance at a trial? Exactly. And that's why they've been waiting for this status hearing. Because the judge is going to say what has to be put out on that table. And I believe that she's going to unseal this information. She's not going to keep this information secret and private anymore. Return the Diamond says, others involved in the cover-up after the fact? No. Because if it was the cover-up after the fact, that would be pertaining to Richard Allen. and his role in the crime. And that cannot be kept from the defense team, or cannot be kept private. And we know that it could be. We just know the defense team wouldn't allow that. They would leak it in some way or some form or fashion. Good to see Audra, Molly. Piper says, I think he's very cunning. I feel he'd not take all the blame. I don't think any of these criminals ever take all of the blame, right? It starts as a partial truth, a half truth, and then just the parts that they would like to relive. The vengeful parts. You know, they like to relive the act, not the motive part, not the part that made them angry. Protect the witnesses from the media, not the defense. Yeah, most likely. And us, right? The media, mainstream and alternative, both. The second their names come out there, their phones will begin to ring immediately. Yes, Shane. You had Holman and Mullin write a letter to Gall stating, "Hey, we need this to stay confidential. We need to protect witnesses." And they even state, "Hey, this could affect Richard Allen's family." So I don't know what that means. What's up, Frederica? Oh, I think I missed you, Boston. Welcome in. CJK says it's sad. So much grief for the families, and we are still waiting and praying for their justice. I mean, it feels like it's right around the corner. I just don't know if what they're talking about. We know that everything regarding Keegan Klein was listed as confidential. So before they took him into ISP custody, they marked it confidential. And they also listed in some of the documents that the defense could not bring up Keegan Klein, along with others, a handful of others, including Ron Logan. Was that them reminding them, like, hey, this information is confidential. You know you can't mention this right now. We're not using this against your client. Hey, True Crime Housewife, do you think it could pertain to Flora case? I don't know. Even though it's not likely that they're connected, I think there is a possibility. I mean, it's right there in the window, the same window that of motive or whatever was going on with Richard Allen, the stress, right? A lot of these cases we cover, these folks, they go through this moment of turmoil, and that's what they blame it on. I was stressed. I don't know why I did it. You know, I was trying to get the power back. I was trying to regain control of of my life. A lot of times psychopaths will just, they'll kill their families or they'll do something really strange that doesn't make sense to normal people. And we're talking about people that haven't committed a crime their entire life. They're married with kids and then they find a new girl, they start dating a coworker and they literally start over. I will just kill my entire family and I'll start over. It happens often, guys. And there doesn't have to be any signs of psychopathy, even though I'm sure the signs were there, but they don't have to have some kind of lengthy criminal history. They can just make the decision to start over. And it's brutal and heartless. But in regards to Flora, he could have been going through something like that. The second half of his 2016 was pure chaos. His daughter's leaving, getting married, moves out. That very same month that she moved out and announces that she's getting married, his brother in law passes away. His brother in law passing away equates to his wife somewhat checking out, from what I understand. So that leaves him to kind of fend for himself. And if he's this crazy guy, a psychopath, he doesn't understand why everybody's suffering from all of this. He doesn't get all the emotional stuff about it. Why are you so sad? Why are you neglecting me? Well, because I'm heartbroken. My brother just died. So that means you got to ignore me and you got to start doing these things that are hurting me. This is about power to you. How do I get that power back? We hear rumors that he was thinking about killing his family. That was brought up in court. That's what I'm talking about. To avoid doing that, he could have done Flora to begin with, right? Arson is a gateway crime. There's no evidence of that, but it's in that time frame. The same catalyst that we think could pertain to Delphi could fit with Flora. And if he's traveling back and forth from Delphi to Peru, and if he's caught on camera going from east to west, he could be taking the back roads from Peru. And when you take those back roads, you go through Flora. Not to mention, he had a old roommate, and I don't know if somebody like a cousin to his wife or something. Either way, they were roommates at some point at the Whiteman Drive location. And then from that point, they moved to Flora. And the place that these roommates were living is about 3 houses down from the Flora fires. So he has somebody connected to Flora right up the street, even closer than what Patrick Westfall's address was at the time. So that could even connect them possibly, potentially, right? And the gentleman that I'm referring to looks an awful lot like the guy standing around wearing that little beanie cap with the ball on top and the blue jacket. Looks a lot like that gentleman. So he does have connections near where the Flora fires happened. Is it likely? No. All I know is that arson is a gateway crime. And we know that there's no criminal history. And if we're going to look at the motive or the catalyst, The time frame still fits. And if you can get away with killing 4 girls or lighting a house on fire, why wouldn't you commit a brutal murder in the middle of the day? Especially when you're doing your best not to kill your own family. Hey, Ellen said the letters were from a while back, not recently. I think Fig said the same thing. They're dated today. They might have been re-entered in today. Yeah, they might not be from today, but they were definitely filed today. Good, Frederica, good. Well, you hang in there. But those letters are definitely proof that they believe others are involved. So whether you do or you don't, the main investigative team does. Julianne, good to see you. Jesse Stoss, how are you? Do you think that the sudden discussion of other actors involved has anything to do with Richard Allen's attorneys trying to pull all the stops to stall even further? No, I think that both sides are panicking right now. The status hearing is the beginning of the negotiating. You know, show me yours and I'll show you mine. Okay, well, yours is a lot sharper than mine. You know, mine's paper thin. Yours is made out of metal. Paper, rock, scissors. I got a rock, you got paper. Well, I don't have paper. I actually have, you have paper, and I have scissors. Well, in that case, we're not going to plead and we would prefer to go to trial. But they really want to get in these, the Odinism stuff. That's their wave. They want to ride that all the way through trial because there's a lot of substance there. Not only is there substance there, what they really want to do is they want to say, hey, look, these gentlemen may not have anything to do with it, and we may not even believe in the Odinism thing. But look, there's just as much there as what they have against my client. So you need to dismiss these charges because there's just as much over here pointing at the Odinism and Holder and Westfall and this whole group here. There's just as much substance as there is here against Richard Allen. So if you're going to charge my client, you need to go and charge them. That's what they're trying to get across to a jury. That's what they're hoping to. But you got to remember that all was dependent upon getting the gun and the bullet information thrown out, which was denied today. Welcome in Route 661. Wasn't there a rumor about somebody in the Delphi investigation, not Richard Allen, being connected to the Stevenson murders? Maybe it's something like that. Well, they came to Indiana and spoke to somebody. They trailed somebody because of an item. But that person was cleared. And I know that there were symbols left at the Stevenson case, pentagrams. There was writing done on the photographs. Objects were moved from one room to the other. The killers stayed with the bodies for much longer than here in Delphi. I believe they even left and came back at some point. DOC wouldn't be protecting KK. He should be doing hard time. Newcastle prison is cush. Why is the judicial system protecting him? I don't think so. I don't I'm pretty sure that just happened while he was locked up for the Delphi murders. How you doing, Julianne? I rewatched Hannibal last week, and the serial killer's motivation was his victims look like his daughter. Stranger things have happened. Well, look at the Evansdale case. You had one of the number one suspects, that Clunder character. I mean, he had a type. It was dual abductions, one smaller and the other one larger than the other. So I don't know what that means something to him. It's very rare, but for him, it seems important. Sleuth John List, not psychotic. Did just that in the early 1970s, got away with it for 25 to 30 years. Most Wanted had this artist make a model of what List would look like. Viewer called him in. Piper says Chris Watts. Hey, there's a good example. And there's a laundry list of psychos out there that have killed their family with no remorse just because they found a new love interest. Somebody younger, more that they considered more interesting. Hey, Ellen, I still have a hard time shaking KK not being involved. Me too. I mean, how do you get past the Wabash River search? 4 weeks into the search, they're handed a tip narrative that brings them Richard Allen. You have Keegan Klein being listed as a confidential informant, meeting at Grissom Air Force Base and talk, specifically for the Delphi case. You have the Anthony Schatz account saying that they were supposed to meet Libby that day, but she didn't show up. You have the ski mask incident, and then the following day, Keegan Klein and his father go to Vegas. The very day that they return, they're served a search warrant, not for CSAM, but for the Delphi case. So, yeah, I can't shake it either. You're not alone on that one. And if Holman and Mullin believe others are involved, is that who they're talking about? Cover up after the fact as in hiding evidence, destroying clothing, etc. Yeah, but hiding clothing for who? Maybe prosecution wants this case completed first before they charge others for helping conceal evidence. I think that would be a good opportunity to make a deal with them. Like, hey, if you tell us, what you did, we'll give you immunity. So I don't know. KA had to know. He must have admitted it to her. I don't think that that's true. I think if his motivation for killing Abby and Libby, God rest their souls, and I believe justice is coming for them right around the corner. But I think his motivation was to keep her from knowing. That doesn't mean he didn't tell somebody. He liked to drink. Maybe the new son-in-law overheard something. Maybe somebody found out he was there that day and said, hey, we always thought he was involved. I would like to come forward with information that you guys didn't know about. Could be a friend of his daughter. Could be a friend of the family. I just don't know the rules about keeping that kind of stuff confidential and why the defense would have to be under that same rule. So maybe some of you guys out there can clear that up. Jesse says, because everything with the catfishing and the Kleins and the Wabash River search was way too close to Richard Allen's arrest for it to be a coincidence. Delphi murders caused more arrest. I don't know about that. I know that there was a lot of arrests for CSAM and things like that, but I don't know if it had anything to do with the tentacles and all of that. But I know that Richard Allen was spending time in Peru, right? Remember, when his brother-in-law passed away, his brother-in-law was taking care of his mother-in-law. He lived there with her. Well, if he passes away, they now have to share that burden with other friends and family members who are willing to help. So occasionally they would be in Peru. So I just find it very strange that them spending time in Peru and Keegan Klein and all of that being in Peru. And then they even, during our own investigation, we uncovered the Second Street connection, and they brought that up during the trial or during the hearings recently. Doesn't mean that there was any substance to it, but it's still very strange. And why would Keegan Klein say that he helped? Why would he say, I threw a phone in the water and my father threw a knife? Do I believe him? I don't know. Why would he say it? He is a liar. He's probably getting more attention than he ever has in his entire life. Same with Elvis Fields. My family never fucking called me or texted me until I told them I was part of a murder. I'm not afraid of going to prison. But damn, this attention sure feels nice. I don't, whether it's negative or not. That could be the same thing with Keegan Klein. But another interesting thing is the whole Trexler thing. You know, where were you, Keegan Klein? Oh, I was at my grandparents'. Well, why was your phone connected to, the Trexler Wi-Fi? And not only that, it was scrolling through porn. Right? Was that your alibi? Is that the witness? Somebody saying, hey, I had Keegan Klein's phone. He wasn't here. I was the one using the phone. He left it here. I was the one connected to the Wi-Fi. Him and so left and came back acting weird. They were talking about burning and getting rid of evidence. Under that scenario, we'll call that the Trexler theory. He wouldn't have any clue about a Richard Allen. If he's not there or if he's not part of it, he just knows something was up that day. And that it wasn't Keegan Klein that was connected to the Wi-Fi, but him. So he wouldn't have anything to offer towards Richard Allen. Therefore, they can't bring that up in trial. It would be to a third party suspect. And what kind of a sicko accuses his father of committing a murder that had absolutely nothing to do with it? Because we know that his father was sending him money and visiting him before that. And once he said that shit, he stopped. He seemingly severed the ties. Mesra says, I still think there is something off with Patrick Westfall. Hey, there could be. There could be. I just haven't seen any evidence of it. Same with Tony Klein. Could be, could be. I just don't see any evidence of his involvement. And Keegan Klein being a weird piece of shit kind of person, doing the things that he's doing for attention, trying to get back at his father. We could be looking way more into that than we should. Or that could be what this is all about. My only thing about Patrick Westfall is the only reason we bring him up is because he was friends with Brad Holder. The only reason we even know who Patrick Westfall is because he lived in Delphi, he lived in Flora, He was friends with Holder, and he was on his Facebook talking about the cutting runes. That's it. That's the only reason we even talk about him. The only reason we talk about Tony Klein is because Keegan Klein threw him under the bus. Everything we know about Tony Klein comes from Keegan Klein, even through the transcripts, through everything. And they ran the digital forensics on all the devices. That evidence should have linked to him the same way it linked to Keegan Klein, and it didn't. But for whatever reason, Holman and Mullin believe that this information cannot be released. Ellen says when the prosecution said that in one of the calls to Kathy Allen that if it got too bad, he would tell law enforcement everything. I don't know too much about that, but it definitely is getting bad. They're being squeezed, and they're right now they're ready to pop. So they're going to figure out. They know what they're going to do. They have a plan A, B, and C, and that all depends on the status hearing. And whether or not they can keep any of this Odinism stuff on the table. I think if they can keep this Odinism stuff on the table, that's their trial wave. They're going to ride that till the wheels fall off. And I told you why. Because they feel like there's just the same amount against them as there is against their client. And that's what they're going to try to sell to the jury. And I think I think it's possible to do that. The only thing is that bullet. It's only going to work if they were able to get that thrown out. And today, that was denied. Yes, you're right. You have decided to release the letters today. I don't know if they were released before, but they're definitely being talked about, and I haven't seen them. I have them. But that's the gist of it, of the letters. Like, hey, can we please keep this stuff confidential? It's detrimental to our case. We do 100% believe others are involved, and we need to protect our witnesses and future witnesses. They're not done. They need other people to come forward. And those folks are probably waiting for Richard Allen to get locked up. Okay, if you can lock him up, that means you can lock these guys up. I'll feel now. I feel a little safer. And you didn't mention my name, and you didn't screw me on this one. That's definitely going to help other witnesses come forward. Ellen Kelly says, I wonder what he was like as a child and a teenager. Yeah, I wonder if he liked to set fires, if he hurt animals. A lot of these psychopaths that we've covered in these strange cases and things that I've seen in other cases that I look at privately, if you can get married at a young age and you have a somewhat of a higher IQ, it's easier for you to hide it. And I feel like Kathy took him under his wing and, was kind of like mama. So when that went away, like what Redfoot says, he was able to let his freak flag fly. I don't know, Ellen. I don't know. I think it might have something to do with maybe his daughter, his new son-in-law, or maybe their friends. But I just don't know if they would be able to keep that confidential if it does pertain to Richard Allen. Wouldn't they have to be on the witness list? But they did say that we haven't seen the entirety, the probable cause affidavit in its entirety. Yeah, Molly. Well, arson is a means of killing or a means of causing harm, and it's easy. They want These psychopaths want an easy target. Abby and Libby, he may have thought they were an easy target, and I'm sure that that's why he attacked them. He did truly believe that, even though that's not the way it turned out for him, which explains the crime scene. But yeah, that's why they do arson. It's their mode of committing their crime. I want to commit murder, but I don't want to get caught. That's why you have a lot of these creepy serial killers who flag people down. That's an easy way for them to get next to their victim. They see a young woman driving in a car, they flag them down and say, "Hey, your taillights are out." And when they get out of the car to look, then they attack them. But that could change. It could evolve. They spoke to the item guy. Hey, what's up, Joni? Yeah, we've covered the Stevenson case extensively on this channel. It's another horrible unsolved mystery. A lot of similarities to the Delphi case. The victimology is a lot different, but hey, Amelia, I'm realizing no matter how many arrests are made, trial or plea, nothing can change what occurred. Nothing. That's what I said. There's really no such thing as justice. Justice would have been this never happening. That's the only real justice. I'd still be working in an office setting, chasing that almighty dollar, crunching numbers, chasing that number one spot. If it wasn't for the Delphi case, I never would have even. I really wasn't even on YouTube a whole lot. I wasn't even on Facebook a whole lot. Just something about that case. It just, when you have two daughters, it's hard to ignore something like that. I knew right then and there I would do everything I could to learn about these types of crimes and how to prevent it. Now here we are. I just don't think that I could handle it. I know that I couldn't. I would feel like I was at war with God. And that's a scary thought because I give all glory to God. Hey, Beth. In my opinion, defense is using state's previous argument to keep PCA sealed as a means for goal to allow their third party. Exactly. That is what they're trying to do. It's exactly what they're trying to do. Ellen says KK got 42 years. Yes, he did. And you can't bargain with somebody else's justice to bring it over to, to help give justice to Abby and Libby. What are you going to tell those families of the people who were catfished by Keegan Klein? Like, oh, we cut off, years of this sentence, justice for you and your family so that we can provide more over here in a much more brutal case. They have to serve justice over here, and then they can make a deal. If he's involved with Delphi, the deal would have to be made over there. And what he would be expecting as far as charges and sentencing and things like that. But they can't bargain with somebody else's family and their children. What do you mean, Shane? Guilt by location, not association. John List killed his whole family, wrote a long letter about why, left his car at the airport, New Jersey, changed identity, and lived in Denver for decades. I think he remarried. Sounds like a psychopath to me. Yeah, and I can't get past that. Welcome in, Doris. It's good to see you. Doris says things started rolling after KK was at Grissom. That's true. Not to mention the other user of the Anthony Shots account. They let Keegan Klein fly off to Vegas, and I guarantee that the FBI was watching him. When they came back, they arrested him. 2019. They interviewed him a few more times. Said, "Hey, dude, you need to start talking." I don't know anything. All right, well, we're getting ready to release some information to the public. Go ahead, he said. Well, that's when we heard about the Anthony Shots account. But they already knew who created the Anthony Shots account. So why even mention it? I don't think it was a Hail Mary. Good to see you, Julianne. Molly, Boston. Anthony Shots account contacted Libby the morning of. So KK created the account. He would have had to share the account, right? Yeah, and he was logging into two different devices into the Anthony Shots account at 8 a.m. that morning. Remember, the girls were up all night the night before, up into the morning of their murder. And when they finally fell asleep, they were back up by 9:30, 10. So up late and then up early for a day off, right? Teenagers, usually they're going to sleep in, especially if they've been up all night. Now, what were they doing? Did something happen? Humanimal says, anyone who thinks TK was not viewing KKC-SAM is seriously delusional. Well, I don't know if they're seriously delusional, because you have all these professional, digital forensics. If they were able to prove that, I believe he was, but I don't know. I believe it's possible, but I wouldn't say seriously delusional. And the only reason I say that is because I always consider the source being Keegan Klein. One of the biggest pieces of shit that I've ever seen, ever, hands down. So consider the source. See, Shane, I think you might be right. Something similar to the whole Dropbox thing. And if Richard Allen didn't do this alone and he's only sorry for killing Abby, maybe he's not responsible for Libby. Maybe somebody else is. Yeah, that's true, Molly. They also had arrested KK's former roommate in Vegas. He was facing assault with a deadly weapon charges. Um, I believe the probable cause affidavit read that he pulled out a gun on somebody, and miraculously, those charges were dropped, and he went on to live happily ever after. So yeah, I think it's possible that you have either him or like a Trexler situation. Nothing to offer towards Richard Allen, but maybe this other person that was involved. And then what about the DNA? We know that they had DNA. We don't hear the prosecution talk about that at all. The defense doesn't even really bring that up. Is that because they can't? Because that's the part that's sealed? Just, all of it's just a lot of strange pieces. Thank you, Audra. Yeah, I knew what you meant. Hey, caricature. What'd you miss? Well, right now you have the defense team is basically saying that if you have the lead investigator and the prosecution saying that there's other people involved, then why would you not allow them to bring the Odinism stuff into the trial or into the case? Why deny that when they themselves are admitting that others are involved? But they're not saying other people did it. They're saying others are involved. The defense is trying to say that somebody else completely did, committed the crimes. Yeah, Carter stated secondary arrests. And also, he said, we're going to continue working on Keegan Klein and his involvement. That's not something you say when you've cleared somebody, or that's not something you say when you're no longer interested. You don't continue working on something that you're not interested in. Yeah, they seem to be older letters, and they may have been released in that document dump. I just don't really remember them. They're definitely dated for today. Let me see. Let me pull them up. Yeah, it doesn't give the dates on this one. Let's see here. The defense states here at different times during the hearing, the state of Indiana by prosecutor Nicholas McClellan spoke the following words as it relates to the potential for third party culpability. So this would have been said on November 22nd, 2022. This is still a very ongoing investigation. Our goal is to find anyone else who was involved in this heinous crime. And they always say that when they don't have the facts, but they don't seal probable cause affidavits. So that's why I take them serious. That is the public interest, to find anybody else involved and get justice for Abby and Libby. He also stated, we have good reason to believe that Richard Allen is not the only person involved in this case, that there may be other actors involved. That's why we left the tip line open. That's why we left the tip email open. The question becomes, at least in the state's mind, is it more important to release the details of the investigation to the public, or more important to keep those confidential in order for the investigation to continue and find anyone else that's responsible? So I don't know if he's referring to the information that's already been released and was eventually made public, like Abby and Libby's friends and the people who were there that day who actually saw the bridge guy. So they may just be referring to those folks. You know, they tried their best to protect those people. Also stated here, it puts the investigation in the best position possible to determine if anyone else was involved. It is the best interest of the public, but the investigation find anyone else involved. So, well, this is well after. So this was addressed November 22nd, 2022. Yeah. So that was right around the time, I think shortly after that they unsealed the documents. Okay. And that's when they received those letters. So yeah, the letters were put out in hopes, and yeah, I remember these letters now. So they put those letters out in hopes to keep it sealed. And the folks that they're referring to are pretty much all of the folks that have been named. But I'm assuming that there's parts of the affidavit that the defense and the prosecution can't really discuss publicly, is what I'm assuming. So if anything, this is going to be a last ditched effort by the defense team to get in the Odinism stuff. And remember, they tried to get the bullet thrown out. That didn't work. So now if they can get the Odinism stuff in and their third party suspects allowed in by Judge Gold, that gives them something to do during trial. If they can't get that in, that's it. That is the final card. Yeah, so I think that these letters were in the document dump because they look very familiar. And here they're telling us, yeah, they were written in November of 2022. But it just kind of reiterates, it makes you wonder, why would you seal a probable cause affidavit on a hunch? You wouldn't. But then again, now that we know what was in there, were they bluffing? Or were they just not sure at the time? Like, hey, there could be more witnesses that will come forward and provide some more, even more damaging information, but they won't come forward if we don't keep this information locked and sealed. And I think it's possible that it worked. Them sealing this document for as long as they could, which wasn't very long. I think it was like 3 months or something like that. So hopefully they got what they needed within that time frame. So I just wanted to know what you guys thought about that. When we catch up on the chat, and then I'll get out of here. This was just going to be a quick one here. So to me, this is the defense team's last efforts. If they don't have a case, guess what they have to do? They have to negotiate. They have to do what's best for their client. They got to get him the best deal possible. Whatever that might be. And the other question is why did Holman, Mullin, Nick, why do they believe others were involved? Does it have to do with the DNA? That part still hasn't been made clear. With all of the information that's been put out to the public, that is still not clear. Because if that was Richard Allen's DNA, we wouldn't hear the end of it. It'd be an open and shut case. But if it's not his DNA, maybe it's just some random person's DNA that had nothing to do with the murders. I doubt that. They said the killer has not committed. It's like the killer hadn't committed a crime before. Okay, well, that fits with Richard Allen. Well, if the DNA fits with Richard Allen and belongs to Richard Allen, we would know that. That's all we would hear. They got a bullet and they have his DNA. We wouldn't even be having this discussion right now. We wouldn't even be talking about the Delphi case. Because we would all be convinced that Richard Allen is the killer. So why are they not talking about the DNA? I think that's why they think others are involved. Yeah, and I don't even know that, Mary. Like I said, all I know about Tony Klein is what we've heard from Keegan, who is one of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever seen. Does that mean he's lying? I don't know. I just can't get over it. They take him into custody the same day they start the Wabash River search. 4 weeks into the river search, they find a lost tip narrative that leads them to Richard Allen. I mean, how do you explain all of that? Maybe they will one day. Maybe they were just making a push, going back to the beginning and following up on every little lead. Trying to be super active with the case. Like, hey, we need a real push. Let's visit avenues that we've neglected. Shortly after Paul Holes visited Delphi, maybe he told them, like, you guys need to follow up on all of this. Don't be so dismissive with everything. Even though you've tracked it down, track it down again. Even though you've gone back to the beginning, go back to the beginning of everything, not just what you filed correctly. Go back and look at everything. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll go ahead and listen to this fat piece of shit, Keegan Klein. We'll spend $1 million searching this, and then we'll go ahead and do what Paul Holes said, and we'll search all the files, not just the ones that appear to be filed correctly. We're going to look at everything. And we're not going to assume that procedure was followed by a T. We're going to look at every little piece of information that came through, regardless of how it was filed. And we're going to listen to this scumbag Keegan Klein and whatever he's got to say. If that means we're going to go searching in the Wabash River, then so be it. So it could have just been an energized push that panned out. Remember, they told us a million times that they've never seen anything like this. And when you got egos and you have pride, you want to be the one to solve this case. You want to be the one to get the job done. Get very territorial. But I think that that can hurt you in the end. Especially when you go around telling everybody that you've never seen a case like this. That tells us, remember Doug Carter? Please be patient with us. We've never seen this before. Well, then you better be asking the FBI for all the help that you can get, and you better not be turning any help away. For instance, with the whole, I'm sure with the whole Brad Holder thing, it was like pulling teeth. Because I know that Becky Patty was extremely interested in Brad Holder early on. Everybody was. After seeing his Facebook posts about Valentine's Day and then finding out that Abby was dating his son, well, it's going to be hard to talk to investigators who have cleared this person, right? Don't tell me how to do my job. You don't think that I've cleared this person? I don't know. I mean, if you go look at the Shauna Howe case, that case went cold because of a simple mistake that they made and nobody followed up on. They trusted this officer, this investigator. Oh, the suspects were in prison. They couldn't have committed the murder. That's good enough for me. 20 years later, DNA proves that was wrong. They let these killers walk free for 20 years. I mean, how do you explain that to a family? Peace train. Oh yeah, you're talking about Bart. Thinking and knowing are two different things. But yeah, I know what you mean. PAFC analysis. Welcome in your opinion, Sleuth. Who did it? I think Richard Allen did it. I think that he may suffer from psychopathy. He may have a lot of skeletons in his closet that we don't know about. Maybe hurting animals, thoughts of hurting his own family, and everything piled up between September and February, September of 2016 and February 2017. I think the stress could have gotten to him. I think it's more likely that he had something to do with Flora than somebody else being involved in the crime. Let's just put it that way. Hey, Julia, with this super chat. Good to see you. Never have I seen a case so hush hush. There better be more. Law enforcement knows if they insist on being tight lipped, an arrest has been made. What gives? Kleins are still sus to me, big time. I don't care what reports show. And also, we got to remember the human element. They want to keep it sealed so they don't have to explain how Doolin dropped the ball, right? We'll keep that for after the elections. Everybody's motivated by, they have their own motivations, right? Everybody. The human element. That doesn't mean that Richard Allen isn't a viable suspect. It just means that there was some humiliations in those documents that they may have wanted to keep silent. under the guise of others being involved. They don't want to put their own shortcomings on display. Because once they finally unsealed it, everybody was like, well, what the hell? What are you talking about? Others involved? Where, like, what are you referring to? We've read every probable cause affidavit, every version they put out, and I still don't see what they were talking about. The only thing I can find in there is that Dan Doolin, even though they tried to blame the FBI and for whatever reason overlooked this guy who came forward to him and told him, yeah, I was there at the time the girls went missing. And yeah, maybe I'm not wearing the blue jacket now, but I mean, come on. Even though the video wasn't out and they didn't release those photographs of the man on the bridge, like, come on, dude, you're standing up there on February 26th, the first presser, you're up there on the stage and they're showing you these photographs of this guy and it's not clicking in your head. To me, if there's any corruption, that's it right there. That's the extent of the corruption, is them lying about that and trying to hide that. Because it would have been extremely harmful to hear that news right up front. So I think they wanted us to focus on Richard Allen and their confidence in this suspect and not the public to overreact to what happened with Dan Doolin. Honestly, that's what they wanted to keep sealed. And the young witnesses' names. Thanks, Joey. Shout out to Joey and Julia for sponsoring today's live stream. Thank you. We are going to get out of here in just a few moments. I just want to hear what you guys have to say. Welcome in, Amy. Thank you for that, Joey. I appreciate you. Zuzu, going to be on the replay crew. Leave me a comment. Coming in late. Hey, what's up? Still not convinced there's zero Klein involvement. I'm not convinced because I feel like there's a big part of this that we haven't been told. But I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure Richard Allen, something's wrong with that man. And for whatever reason, he snapped that day. And he could have been stalking Abby and Libby without needing to access the Anthony Shots account. If his daughter moved out, he could have been on her Facebook. He could have been using his own home computers. He could have been using his resources at CVS, working at the photo lab. We know that the Patty family and the German family, they got their photos developed there. Maybe he was stalking them through their photos. There is an eerie similarity between Libby and his daughter. She looks like a young version of his daughter. If he's telling the courtroom or telling his folks that he's thinking about killing his own family, well, there you have it. There's your motive right there. I don't want to kill my own family. I'll just kill somebody that looks like them. So yeah, he could have been stalking. This could have been pre-planned without Keegan Klein. Even though, because that's really what it is, right? We see the pre-planning. Why did you back up? Why are you so overdressed? Why do you have your box cutter? Why do you have your gun? Why do you have your face covered? Why are you walking with a purpose past those three young girls, yet you attack those two girls? You didn't do anything to Betsy Blair. We don't know. But in my opinion, he doesn't need Anthony shots to have been pre-planning and stalking online and in other ways. I just don't think it's necessary. And I know for a fact after covering hundreds of cases that not only could he have killed both girls by himself, he most likely did. And if he used a box cutter, well, what do you think they use at CVS? What do you think his weapon of choice would be? Right? He doesn't want to get caught, so I can't use this gun. If I use this gun, everybody's going to know where I'm at. If Derek German is looking for his daughter and he hears a gunshot, he's going to go running down there. And these girls are now fighting me. They're not afraid of my gun. They're going to tell my wife what I did. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to be embarrassed. 8 months, eight or 9 months before my daughter's getting married. I'm going to prison for sexual assault. I can't have that. That's what he's telling himself. And if he's a psychopath, their lives mean nothing to him. And him apologizing for killing Abby and not Libby could be because he was triggered by Libby. Her looking like a younger version of his own daughter. Yeah, James, we were talking about that. But I mean, it sounds like the wounds were similar. The same weapon was used. Thank you, Boston. Says hush hush is right. Kathy Allen went on Facebook and did an apology. When? I don't think I saw that. Taco says, I believe he acted alone, but others involved as the web. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't even know if CSAM is involved. He could have been trying to contact them the night before. Hey, Amy. Yep, somebody did hack his brother-in-law's Facebook. After he passed away. Kathy Allen referred to him as a monster of a person. Sound familiar? Sound like somebody we know? Only monster that we know, right? That's what I still can't figure that out, James. So either they were trying to hide these young witnesses' names, which they could have done anyway and still given us all of the information, or they're trying to hide the mistakes that were made. Or at least not put it in the forefront. Let's focus on Richard Allen, and then once it's unsealed, then you guys can talk about how we dropped the ball. Good to see you. Hey, Kiwi. Julie says it's a small town, though, but I just cannot find a direct connection between the girls and Richard Allen. Maybe I'm having tunnel vision, to be honest, because believe he specifically targeted Abby and Libby. Well, I think one easy connection is the Dairy Queen right across the street. The girls spent time there. For all we know, they spent time at the CVS, the McDonald's. You got Riley Park. The girls were there Sunday. Riley Park is on his way home from work. He drives past Riley Park. If he likes to go hiking, also there's a trail right behind the Pizza Hut, which is across the street from the Dairy Queen. And if he's on lunch, if he's on his break and he's watching these girls, right? Filming them maybe, sitting at the sitting down for lunch inside the Dairy Queen, filming the girls without their knowledge. Making duplicates of their photos. And honestly, it would be Libby, not Abby, that would be spending the majority of the time around that area. Because her sister worked there. And if he's a smoker, he goes outside, walks to the end of the building, watching, fantasizing inside his head. So I don't think that we need Anthony Shots for Richard Allen to be stalking and pre-planning this murder, specifically surrounding Libby as his target. Crime Jester says, I think he acted alone. Well, statistically, he did. You know, that's most likely what happened. And whenever I bring up Anthony Shots and Keegan Klein, I tell you guys exactly why. It just has everything to do with the Grissom stuff, you know, and I've said it a million times. But the truth is, there's a lot we don't know about Richard Allen. We don't know what's going on in his head. We don't know his habits. We don't know what he did as a young child. We don't know if he went out into the woods and was killing animals and cutting them open, lighting fires. We don't know about any of that. All I know is that people have gone through their entire life up until the age, 45, 50. And then for whatever reason, they decide they want to start over. You know, they've been married with children and they meet somebody new and they just want to start over. To somebody with psychopathy, murder is always on the table. You know, they're writing down a list of their options. Well, murder seems to be the best. Thank you, Julia. When is your next call-in? I have thoughts. Well, I guess we can do that maybe tomorrow morning. We should do a call-in on Delphi. You got it. I'll schedule that as soon as we're done here. Well, after I go eat dinner. Thank you, Julia. This is a way out there theory, but I have a tiny dog tag that tracks my dog's location linked to my phone. It's the size of a pea. I wonder if he may have done something like that prior. Yeah, it's possible. He could be stalking these girls in a way that we haven't even considered. And I think it has to do with him working at CVS, the family getting their film developed there, him being able to access the files of people who may or may not be home around the bridge. From the beginning, the investigative team said, why Delphi? Why Abby and Libby? And we can say the same thing for why the Monon High Bridge Trail. Well, we now know that he frequented that trail. We now know that he worked at CVS, which is across the street from the Dairy Queen that Libby's sister worked at. And on his way home, he goes right past Riley Park where the girls were at on that Sunday and where they spent a lot of time. So he could be stalking them in a plethora of ways, really, that haven't even been mentioned. Hey, what's up, Knockface? It's possible. I mean, it is and I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but his brother-in-law, who knows? Maybe he was accessing the Anthony Shots account before he passed away. And Richard Allen was able to access that on his devices now that he was passed. I think it's possible. I just think we would have heard about it by now. Steven says it's bullshit they are pushing. Well, yeah, it's their last effort to get in these third-party suspects. That's their only hope. And if they can't push that and convince Judge Gall to allow it, 100% we'll see a plea deal very soon. They don't have another wave. That's it. That's it. They need to ride that all the way through the trial because it's the only thing that's going to convince the jury of anything. And all they're going to do is say, hey, look, if we have a group of people that look just as guilty as Richard Allen and they're not connected in any way, how are you going to convict this man and not them? Well, the number one answer is the bullet, right? That's why they were trying to get it thrown out. They weren't able to get it thrown out. So guess what? They don't have a whole lot. They don't have a whole lot to negotiate with. Welcome in, Veronica. Good to see you. Swade Smith, welcome back. My instinct has always been Richard Allen is a fall guy. So you buy into the corruption theory. People trying to pin it on anybody for political gain or because they have some kind of camaraderie or brotherhood ties like Freemasonry and things like that. I don't see any evidence of that. If there is no Richard Allen DNA, it's because he wore gloves. I personally think he wore gloves during the crime. Well, there's other ways to have DNA. You can have spit, semen, blood. So they could have DNA in a way where they can't say 100% it's Richard Allen's blood, but they can say it's like 1 in like 5 million that it's Richard Allen or one of his family members or something like that, where they can't exclude him. And that's still very damning evidence to be able to prove that in a court. A lot of cases have been won that way. Like, hey, you were the only one that was in that area, and it was either you, your dad, or your 2 brothers. And you were the one that was caught fleeing the scene on camera. You know, something like that. Hey, Heather. He's like O.J. Simpson. O.J. didn't necessarily go there to kill Nicole, but he was prepared to. He was eventually going to do it. I don't know. I think he was prepared. I think if something can bring you to the point to commit a murder, that means that you don't have total control over yourself. And if you don't have total control over yourself, that means that that darkness can take over. Like to where you're watching a movie and you're watching yourself committing a brutal homicide. And that's how these profilers are able to kind of figure things out because they know that if you're going to commit this murder, there's something driving you and there's something that's you're unable to control. And they're going to use that to catch you. Because not everybody is cold and calculated like these, like all these intelligent serial killers. Because most serial killers are average of average intelligence, but some of them are above average. And those are the ones that are harder to catch. But Richard Allen strikes me as somebody who can figure things out on the fly. He can adapt to a situation. He realized what he did, and he was able to kind of come up with a plan, and he knew that he had to be proactive about it. That's why he came forward. Even though he lost control, I think once he understood what the circumstances were, he was able to kind of formulate a plan. Regis, a lot of people who are 100% convinced of Richard Allen's guilt seem to forget that the Anthony Shots account was used to lure the girls there at that time. I think it's possible that Richard Allen misused the Anthony Shots to do it. Well, the thing is Richard Allen could be observing Libby and observing Anthony Shots, thinking that it's a real person or knowing that it's a catfish. He doesn't need to be using the Anthony Shots account to observe these interactions. So he doesn't need to have access to that account to see that she's on her way to the bridge. He could have been at the park the day before. He could be on Facebook. He could be doing who knows what. But yeah, he definitely could be stalking her. He just doesn't need 100% have to be using the Anthony Shots account. Could he be? Yes. Law enforcement was definitely interested in other users. And Keegan Klein, he admitted to everything else. Like, yeah, I said this, but I don't know who said that. I don't know who was using the Anthony Shots account. It was probably my dad. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Richard Allen. I'm just saying it doesn't need to be Richard Allen using the Anthony Shots account for him to be stalking them online or stalking them through his job's resources or people who are, I don't know, people that he sees in his day to day. What do we covet, right? We covet what we see every day. So if he's at work, takes a smoke break, and here comes Libby, you know, walking across the street from Dairy Queen to grab some Gatorades, for her and her sister, or a bag of candy, or to get a roll of film developed, right? He's going to begin to covet that, especially if she looks a lot like his daughter and he's having visions of killing his own family. And that could be what causes him to go further, right? Let me go ahead and create a Facebook account, or let me hack my brother-in-law's Facebook account and start talking or stalking Libby online. Something like that. All right, let me zip on down here because I got to get out of here. I will go to Heather Doolin, the tip narrative scandal. Yep, I call it. There are so many unanswered questions. Yeah, that could have been what they were hiding under the guise of protecting witnesses, right? Because, I mean, that is humiliating. Like, imagine if they just let that information out first. Like, oh, we caught this guy and we had him on day 2. And we dropped the ball and we never put 2 and 2 together. That's embarrassing. That's not good for your investigation. You would want them to focus on all the strong pieces of information and focus on Richard Allen. They want to see him as this strong suspect, not somebody that came forward early on and they just let go. What's up, Redfoot? Good to see you, my friend. All in aloha. Ron Logan is dead. Law enforcement makes statements all the time when people are dead, like he isn't a suspect. In this case, to clear the name because they are dead, so people stop sending leads. No statement from law enforcement about Ron Logan. Yeah, there's nothing on Ron Logan.
Excellent.
I'll hit him. I'll hit him with the excellent. All right, let's go to a few more. Humanimal. Cody Patty and Richard Allen, daughter friends online. They're about the same age. That's a good question. All right, let's go to two more. Megan, welcome in. You don't think he did it? Why is that? Blue-eyed trucker, what's up? How you doing? Says, come on, we know they will never accept any blame. Yeah, and I think that they could have been motivated to keep that part hush hush. Like, imagine if they came out and said, hey, we have our guy, but guess what? We had him from day two. I mean, how that's not going to be good for their investigation. They had to play that just right. They had to put it in the background. And I'm sure they wanted to protect the witnesses and stuff like that too, but I'm sure that played a part in all of it. You know, they didn't want that to be the focal point. Hey, what's up, Anthony? Extra bag in Vegas for what? What the hell was he worried about? Well, he's worried about spending 45 years in prison because he knew that he was running this huge CSAM operation, and one of the people that he was catfishing recently just got murdered. I mean, I know he's not the sharpest tool in the box, but he can put two and two together and realize, hey, eventually they're going to come knocking at my door and they're going to find out what I was doing with this Anthony Shots account. Could have been as easy as that or not. Okay, let's go to a few more. Let's go to Mark Collins. I do believe there is an older and younger person involved. That's my honest opinion. What makes you think that? The sketches? Hello, Stephanie. Yeah, I mean, the crime looks pre planned. That's why when we hear about the Anthony Shots, it's hard for us to just dismiss it because it appears that that the girls were being lured, and it appears as if he had planned this out. He backed into the CPS building. He's very overdressed compared to the girls. The witnesses say he had his face covered and that it appeared he was having a bad day and walking with purpose. And he didn't even say hi. Like, you think if he was out there looking for trouble and they said hi, that would have been like his in, right? Like, hey, hi, what are you girls doing? You know, maybe try to get him to walk deeper into the woods or something. But no, he walked right past them, head down, almost as if he was looking at his phone, and he kept bringing up the phone. So he doesn't need to have access to the Anthony Shots account to be luring and stalking and to have pre-planned this crime. But it is possible in a way that we may have not even thought of yet. Hey, Squeaky Wheel, 60 confessions would be a good start as well. Richard, good to see you. Anthony says, I like when Sleuth has call-ins. I enjoy you all and your perspectives. Yeah, I think we'll do that tomorrow. We'll do that. I think tomorrow will be a good time to do that. There's a lot going on. We've had two solid live streams on Delphi. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to get off the table, I think. Not forget about or dismiss. But I think it's time to start focusing in on what's really going on here. Yeah, Stephanie, it just doesn't make sense. And they're definitely not going to interview him and then let him go. They're going to interview him and then bring him in and then arrest him. because of the evidence that's against him. Because we know the chain of custody, they've had that since the 14th. Like, you're talking about a million different crimes that the investigators would have committed to get this done. Just doesn't make any sense. When it would have been easier just to, if they had any involvement, Freemasonry and trying to protect the Odinists, they would have been better off just covering it up. I mean, Tony Leggett was going to win that election anyway. So, all right, let's do one or two more here. I'm going to zip all the way down. Amy says, this might be a stupid question, but is there GPS on Facebook? If so, whoever was talking to the girls could have tracked them. No, but the Yubo app, which was connected to Snapchat, and we know the girls were posting on Snapchat that they were on the trails, going to the trails. So, and really, you don't need to track somebody when they're telling you, hey, this is where I'm going. And then they're taking photographs that they're now there. Right? So, and he could have been stalking them on Facebook, Snapchat, and a few other things. They're posting photographs. They're up all night talking about what their plans are the following day. Hey, what's up, Jari? Redfoot says, I believe Libby's phone pinged and then laid there hidden until the battery went dead, except right before it died. The phone sent a signal to the tower. A lot of phones will send a phone ping. I don't know. I think it may have either been gotten wet, and then once it kind of dried out, it may have turned back on. A lot of people have sent me emails talking about the iPhone 6 and how it does that. But I'm not an expert on that, and I haven't ran any tests. That'd be, maybe we can get our hands on an iPhone 6 and try it out. Don't get it soaking wet, but get it kind of damp. Put it in a pocket, go in, dunk it in the water, and then see what happens. But to me, that's what I think happened with the pings and the strange late night messages coming through and all of that. Hey, what's up, Allison? I didn't time Joey out. He didn't say any. Yeah, I don't know who timed him out. Let me see. Looks like it. Let me see. View the message. Brought the phone back to the bridge. Yeah, I don't know what happened, Joey. I think it was a mistake. Yeah, it looks like it was a mistake. Don't worry about it, Joey. I'll read your messages right now. So he says, I think it was pinging. Joey said Libby's phone was pinging all over town, and then the last time it pinged was at the bridge at 2:30 a.m. I think at 2:30 a.m. and then also like around 4, like messages were actually coming through. So I don't know if it had something to do with the temperature. I don't know if there's a huge temperature change right around 4:30 in February around that time. I'm just not sure. So it could have dried out, and then at 2:30 a.m. it pings and then shuts back off due to cold weather or something. Yeah, no worries, Metal. Yeah, sorry about that, Joe. It was just an accident. Yeah, why would you bring evidence back to a crime scene? That fits into the patsy theory. If you're trying to set somebody up, you know, we're bringing the phone back because we used it to make the fake bridge guy video. That's why we brought it back. So now that we have the fake bridge guy video, we did all that editing and created that on there, even though we know that it wasn't collected from Libby's phone, even though it was produced by her phone, they didn't get the image from her phone. It was screenshotted by one of her friends. Said, "Hey, oh, this is cool." And if anybody knows anything about Snapchat, the stuff doesn't stay on there. If you want to view it, you record it. And apparently somebody recorded her video, saved it, and some of the photos. All right. Good to see you, Cheeks. What's up? This will be our last one, guys, and then we're out of here. I always thought it was possible the phone had no signal around 4. It found the tower and did an update and died, or found the tower, got flooded with the messages she was being sent, then died. Yeah, and I'm telling you guys, I've received at least over the last since that information was released, at least a dozen emails from people who actually have experienced something with their very own iPhone 6, something very similar to that. So yeah, that's what I think's going on. And even though the defense might know that, they're going to use this information. They're going to use what they can, you know? But during the status hearing, all cards are on the table. And if they don't have anything to negotiate with, they're going to have to do the best they can for their client. Welcome in BD Hubbard. Yeah, no worries, Joey. That happens all the time. Sorry about that. All righty. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your day or the rest of your night, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Let's give a shout out to Joey, Julia, Boston, Julia, and Julia. I'll see you guys again tomorrow, noontime, Mountain Standard Time. We'll do a quick call in. All right, you guys take care. See you again real soon.